Captain America Brave New World is actually good and surpasses any expectations you may have, especially after all those worrisome headlines talking about the reshoots, the budgets, everything surrounding this movie. This film comes out on top and ends up becoming a really good Captain America movie. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today we're discussing Captain America Brave New World with no spoilers. You are safe here. This, of course, follows Sam Wilson, the new Captain America, who finds himself in the middle of an international incident and must discover the motive behind a nefarious global plan. Now, this is directed by Julius Ohan, who I might be mispronouncing it, but just to say this, Julius, I know a lot of people have been saying, like, hey, like, why did they get the Cloverfield Paradox director to direct this? When I saw his name, I said, oh, that's the dude who directed Loose, that very underrated movie, and it was a fantastic movie at that. When I heard that he was tackling this movie, and that this is going to be more of a conspiracy theory type of movie that kind of leaves for a more thrilling vibe to it all, I kind of thought to myself, that's perfect casting right there. Like, that is a perfect director choice for this Captain America movie, and for the most part, I thought he did a solid job. So we're going to talk more about that when we actually get into my pros. All I can really say is, like, going off of this and just, like, my overall reaction was I really enjoyed Captain America Brave New World. I wasn't anticipating to. I was expecting that it would just be a solid time, and I got a little bit more out of it than that. I think there are flaws here that do hold the film back, and maybe part of that can be from some of the reshoots, can be from some of the production issues, but overall this film does come out on top, and I think will satisfy Marvel fans for the most part, specifically in the way that it tackles the lore and the world of the MCU, which is something that I wish a lot more of the films grasp onto instead of just making little smart little jabs here and there that reference something in the universe. So definitely leave your thoughts down below, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's dive into my pros. So number one thing I want to talk about is the cast. I always like referencing them and giving their good kudos. And Anthony Mackie, for me, I think this is his best performance yet as Sam Wilson, mostly because he gets to shine and showcase as the character. And coming off Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is a show that I've come to appreciate a little bit more as time has kind of gone on, and specifically now seeing like what else we get on Disney Plus, like that show is a little bit better in hindsight, but I still had some issues with it. And I still feel like that show really should have never happened. I feel like we should have just had this movie first with some little interspliced changes, obviously, but I think now getting to see Anthony Mackie hold the shield up on the big screen in the movie theater light is just thrilling, and it's awesome. And I think this is a great showcase for why Sam Wilson deserved to get this shield. And there's always been that debate, should Bucky have gotten the shield? Should they have just recasted Chris Evans and had a different Steve Rogers come in? I think after watching this movie, I can definitively say, like, yeah, he deserved this shield. And not just because of the performance, because his performance is great, but also because of his attitude, how much different he is from Steve Rogers, and the difference that he brings to Captain America and what Sam Wilson will mean to people. I thought that was the reason, like the overall thesis and theology for that character. On top of that, other than just Anthony Mackie, I found Harrison Ford was a great recast as Thaddeus Ross. Now, I do miss William Hurt. I think it would have been awesome to have William Hurt in here, but I think Harrison Ford overall doesn't phone it in here. He really brings the gravitas to Ross, and I overall really liked his character. Giancarlo Esposito is a character that a lot of people have been talking about because this is a character they added on reshoots, and again, for the most part, surface level, enjoyable. Giancarlo Esposito does his typical fashion villain stuff, and I think he's fun for it, but I don't think the character was overall needed. Harris as well, pretty good as the new Falcon. I think he kind of brings the comedic edge overall. Carl Lumbly, great as Isaiah Bradley. He was great in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and he's fantastic here. And of course, Tim Blake Nelson returns finally after years and years, and his return does not disappoint. I think he was great as Samuel Stearns, and I really love the usage of him in here. I actually wish there was even a little bit more of him. You'll hear about that a little bit more in my mixed and con area. And on top of that, like one thing I was excited to see, especially in a Captain America movie, is the action. And the action here is fantastic. Like, it is very entertaining. Some of the clips that they've kind of been releasing didn't really give me the highest expectations, and I don't want to say like this is John Wick level action, but it does remind me of some of the earlier stuff in Phase 2, and even I would say Phase 1, and specifically the way that they hone it in, and even the overall tone of this movie. Now, I think the action is thrilling. I think it's entertaining, but that's where I really want to get down to this. And the thing that impressed me the most, which was the tone. The film, the second you see the Marvel Studios logo flare up, it's different. And that like clicked an intriguing thing to me of like, okay, what are we getting in store for this? What are we getting here? And this is like, for the most part, a political conspiracy theory type of film. Very boots to the ground for like about 90% of the film, I would say. And that for me just works. It works inside the MCU. And even when you get bigger and badder with, of course, like the Red Hulk stuff, it still feels in line with the entire tone and never takes it out of place or takes you out of the experience. And that, for me, was something I was very impressed with to see how Brave New World honestly handled. And the fact that the tone can feel that way, and even the look of the film feels different to other Marvel movies, was something impressive. Sometimes it does feel a little bit more lower budget, more boots, again, grit to the ground in certain production design and certain atmospheres. And overall, for the most part, it usually works for the likeness of the film and what it's trying to accomplish. And I really liked what Julius did from that on a directing flair and specifically on a look and feel. And on top of that, the thing that I was really happy with Brave New World, we knew going into this that like the celestial giant island from Eternals was going to show up in here in some way, shape, and form. And even on top of that, like, we also heard rumors of how it might tie into the original Incredible Hulk that happened years ago to Edward Norton that is canon to the MCU. And something that, again, I was very happy with is while Brave New World does stand alone in its own atmosphere, it harkens back and takes other things from the MCU and places it inside its lore. That made me happy to see. A lot of the time, MCU films will like pick and cherry pick here and there, mention this, mention that. Oh, this is a nice little Easter egg. This is a nice little Easter egg. But these things are significant things that have happened in the MCU that either have barely been referenced or when they are, they're not really referenced all too much. And a lot of the films kind of just don't do that. They don't make these things central plots, and that could be an issue for some, but for me, I loved it. I love that they made the Celestial Island like an actual big plot point of the entire film. I like that they actually reference a lot of the Incredible Hulk, whether you love or hate that movie. I really love that they actually dove into that and brought back Samuel Stearns, a character that is very small in that, but actually has big implications for the future. And now you see those implications within Brave New World and what that actually hones in. I think they do that with all in Sam Wilson's first Captain America movie and still make Sam Wilson feel like the heart of the story and make it as a great standout without it overbearing him, I think was a big accomplishment because it just makes it remembered that this takes place all in this MCU world. And for me, I don't know. I thought that was really cool. I don't think a lot of the Marvel films have been able to accomplish that. But that is where I want to dive into my mixed in issues with the movie. Because while I think this movie is really good, and it's a great standout for Anthony Mackie, I have some flaws with the film that hold the entire film from being great. Now, one of those things I want to mention is the usage of some of its characters. I think the film is way too short. I think there could have easily been at least 20 more minutes of the movie that kind of dove into and upped the stakes a bit more in terms of just the storytelling and actually added a little bit more of a mystery to everything going on. If you're a Marvel fan, I think you can kind of guess what's going to be happening. And if you're not really versed into the MCU, you may be a little bit confused and be like, who is that? What's going on here? I'm a little bit confused. And I wouldn't blame you if you felt that way. Like, I would actually understand genuinely if you were like, yeah, I don't really understand what's going on. Pros and cons of that, for me, I liked parts of that, and part of me I can also understand. I just wish they would have dove into it a little bit deeper to give a little bit more of a nuance. And that kind of also goes to like Sidewinder, like Giancarlo Esposito's character. Like, he's just kind of there. And I know he was in the reshoots, but it's little things like that that make it so surface level that there should have been a bit more there for the story. As well as I think the visual effects, which has just been a big conversation around Phase 4 and 5, sometimes they are phenomenal in here. I mean, genuinely, sometimes they are phenomenal. Red Hulk looks great. But also at other times, it looks very flat and dull. And some of that can be probably said to the cinematography, but some of it is just the visual effects. Like, I liked more of the boots to the ground action style than the like flying around maneuvering, because again, sometimes it looked great and sometimes it just took me out of the experience, because we've experienced things like Top Gun Maverick, which looks amazing and it looks real and you don't believe that you're watching a movie. And where in this, I'm like, oh, I'm watching a movie. Even like some of the third act stuff, like the background just felt like they were on a blue or green screen, and I wish they would have touched that up just a tad bit. And the last thing that I think that holds the film back just a tad bit is some of the dialogue. I think some of it can be a little bit too clunky and a little bit too cheesy, and I didn't really appreciate that. It took me away from the overall tone of what was going on. I'm all good for like comedic relief, but there was like even early on, there's like one bit of dialogue where I heard it and I was like, ooh, I don't know if I like that. Just as housekeeping before we get to my final thoughts, there is one post-credit scene. It's not the most mind-altering thing or jaw-dropping event, but it is one that I kind of appreciated for how simple it was, and it made me smirk knowing what's to come. Alongside that, I also want to say, I don't want to get into spoilers, but there's a couple things in this film that the marketing is very much pushed forward into your eyes. Do not expect the entire film to be that way. This is, again, a more boots-to-the-ground, gritty film. And that's about all you need to know. Again, we'll leave it there. You can piece together what I said. Sure, you can guess it if you've paid attention to the marketing. And if you haven't, you're fine. That said, Captain America Brave New World is a strong testament to why Sam Wilson was the right choice to carry the shield. Mackie delivers his best performance, yet the action is entertaining and the story remains engaging. There are a few flaws, as I mentioned, that hold this back from being great, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. And side note again, Harrison Ford is fantastic, and Red Hulk is awesome when he shows up. The way the film weaves in the MCU's world and lore adds great depth to the story. It's smart and well-executed choices. Overall, I liked Captain America Brave New World. I wasn't anticipating to enjoy it as much as I did, but I did, and I think this is a solid MCU film that only again showcases why Mackie deserved the shield overall. So all that said, I'm going to give this film a B. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching this. Make sure to hit that like, subscribe button, comment down below your guys' thoughts. And of course, until next time, stay classy and look forward to a brand new MCU movie ranking later this weekend.